Well, hey everybody! Welcome back to yet another episode of Totally Amazing Mushrooms. Starting to cool down out there, and many of our fungal buddies are starting to dissolve back into the environment. However, the next shift is on their way out. So, come for a walk with us and see which ones we can see. Would you believe it's the middle of December? Really, this is ludicrous. The chanterelles, Cantharellus formosus, is still going strong. Well, that's just excellent because I have an empty frying pan at home. Cool. Hey, here's another Gomphidius here. And one of our totally amazing subscribers mentioned about the Gomphidius and how they can absorb heavy metals. So, yeah, you got to be careful. They'll absorb arsenic and mercury and different ones like that. So, must be careful. Just wanted to pass that along to you all. Well, you'd almost think that you were looking at a store-bought mushroom here. Wow, these guys are growing out from underneath this old cedar tree. And you know, not a lot of mushrooms are associated with cedar trees. Well, you know when I always say, well, it was way back when, in the early 1700s, when all the guild mushrooms got thrown in the Agaricus genus, and then it would get moved around through the years. Well, this one stayed there in the Agaricus genus, but we don't know which one it is. So, which species is it? Well, man, you guys ask great questions. Well, is it Agaricus subrufescentoides? Is it Agaricus hondensis? Is it Agaricus xanthodermis? Or is it Agaricus deardorfensis? Dear Dorfensis, I'm writing you this letter because I hear you're hanging out with other fungi out in the forest. Okay, seriously. So, yeah, these guys can look very, very much like the store-boughts. And, hey, funnily enough, look at what I got. I got myself a Bisporus I brought along. I picked one of these up out in the grocery store today. So look at how similar they are. And let's pull one of these up. Okay, these guys are... Well, this guy's veil's not quite broken yet. Well, he's got a very thick ring you can see starting here. Well, one thing about the forest Agaricus is a lot of them stain yellow. I'm not going to even bring up the meadow mushroom, the campestri, or the horse mushroom, the arvensis, because, well, one, the arvensis grows around the horse liveries and paddocks and whatnot, and the campanestri is a meadow mushroom. So, alright, so, well, let's get down to this here. Subrufescentoides. Well, that one has quite dark scales, and they're darker red, kind of. And they have this smell. Now, a lot of the Agaricus have a smell. Some of them kind of smell like almonds. Some of them have what they call a phenolic smell. I find that they have more of a formaldehyde kind of smell, which is odd because formaldehyde is only a single carbon and phenols are 6 carbons long, but nonetheless, that's my nose anyways. Some say the smell of creosote, but I'm sure that only the Gen Xers and the boomers are going to know what creosote smells like. Kind of like a high school laboratory, I guess would be the best way to say. So, these guys do have a smell. I've given them a little sniff here. And if you don't smell them on the young, give them a scratch. Sometimes the young ones don't smell all that much. Alright, so this one has the smell, but it has lighter kind of what they call scales. They're kind of fibril and whatnot. I'm just going to shift positions here because, ooh, the old hips are going to give out in a minute here. Alright. So, those have kind of darker scales, and I'm going to pull out a bigger one here, a little bit more mature. I want to get them out of the soil to show you the base and the whole full meal deal here. But unfortunately, this guy's veil hasn't broken either. However, we're going to be cutting this guy in half because a lot of them, one of their traits is they stain yellow. Some of them stain kind of a red color after they've been cut. And quite often the base will have more of a smell. All right, so I've gotten off track, I'm sorry. Now, is it Agaricus hondensis? Well, that one's fairly common around here, and it's got a big, thick, felty ring, kind of like this guy does. And he does have a faint phenolic smell, and I've already smelt them. I know that they do. It's faint on these guys. More so when you give them a little scratch, but they still have that foresty kind of smell. Now, is it Agaricus deardorfensis? Well, that one also has a ring, and but it's more of kind of a rubbery ring, and this one's quite, if you can see how felty this is. Yeah, there you go. And the deardorfensis ring that's rubbery can move up and down a little bit. So that's, and the other thing is, the deardorfensis also has a very, very strong phenolic smell, or formaldehyde smell, or creosote smell, however you want to describe it. It has that scent to it. They also stain yellow, and as a matter of fact, I found one the other day. Didn't have my camera with me, of course. However, as I was carrying it, I happened to look down at the cap, and about a ½ inch up the margin was all turning yellow. Okay, so this guy I've been handling quite a bit, and he's not turning yellow. He's not turning red either, however. So those are some of the characteristics of those ones. Now, let's get to the Xanthodermus. The Xanthodermus is the yellow stainer. So that one, particularly in the bulb, stains a very, very kind of sulfury colored yellow. And what we're going to do is I'm just going to go and grab my knife, because it's over in my basket over there. And we're going to cut this guy in half, and we're going to also cut this button in half. And we're going to take a look-see on the inside. See how pink the gills are? Kind of a salmon-y color. And they will turn a chocolate brown with their spores, because that is their spore color. And you can see it's starting to get a slight little bit of yellowing down here. I hope there's enough light to show that, but let's bring it in. Quite often the yellowing is in the base of the stipe. See that? Sometimes you have to kind of crush it to get it a little bit more, but I tell you, as soon as I cut into this thing, that smell, the phenolic smell, is quite strong. Okay, so let's just give it a little crush. Oop. We'll return to that in a minute. We'll just give it a minute. Yeah, see, it's actually starting to stain a little bit. Now, the Xanthodermus is the yellow stainer, and that one is like instant, and it's quite bright yellow. This one is not quite instant, but it is definitely yellowing, but not quite as bright as it I would expect from, say, a Xanthodermus. Let's take a look here at the, you can see the gills there. See the pink, how pink they are? Kind of looking a little bit grayish. Like I said, it's I'm under a cedar tree here, so it's kind of. So I am going to now cut open our little Bisporus here, and give you a little comparison of the two side by side. Now this one's a little bit more mature. The Bisporus are obviously cultivated, and they're taken at this perfect button stage. And actually how they do it, they've got a big tray of them. They're huge trays, amazing, huge. And they just come along with this knife, and it slices them all once they get to a certain size, and then they get sorted by size. Smaller ones go into the canning, and then the bigger ones go to the grocery store. So this is, you can see they both got kind of scales, but this one's kind of a pinky, and it may not be showing up so much under here, but it's got quite a pinkish tinge to the top of this one. I am going with Agaricus hondensis on this one here. And all four of the fungi that I mentioned are all toxics. So, you know, don't be going out in the forest and thinking, oh, I found a Bisporus, I'm going to snarf down on that. Yeah. Remember to look at the yellowing and that whatnot. And it's not showing up so much in the above the bulb, but below the bulb, the yellowing is starting to show more so now. Especially after the crushing. Okay, so a lot of these Agaricus out in the forest Agaricus, are a major cause of the poisonings in North America, so keep that in mind. Now, hondensis, where did it get its name from? Well, it was actually named after the place it was picked by Mr. Alfonso Morel in 1912 or something like that. And he picked them in La Honda, California, and so it got called hondensis. That's his name there. And then about 30 years later, actually, it got confirmed about this one. But also Morel had also described a bunch of them and named one Hillii and McMurphyi and Bivallettis, and so. But later on, when Alexander Smith came along, he looked at all of these reports and whatnot and decided that all of them were the same. They were actually hondensis. So, kind of cool. And they were also collected under big old California red cedars. So that's pretty amazing in itself. But this is the hondensis, the felty-ringed Agaricus. Awesome, so there we have it, folks. We've got our Bisporus, and we've got our hondensis Agaricus. Yeah, you can see that our trailway has become a waterway, unfortunately. All the runoff from up on this bank up here is just all washing down and forming a creek. Wow, man. Oh well, there's a reason why we live in the wet coast, because we love it. Pretty easy to walk by these little tiny things. Well, look at these little beauties, little jellies. They're little on a hardwood stick here. This is a piece of Acer macrophyllum. That's one of the, that's our broadleaf maple. It's around here the most. And these guys are less than 3 millimeters. They're just tiny. And they don't really have a stipe at all. So they call that sessile when they don't have a stipe. But yeah, easy to miss. Early on, August Batch called it the Peziza genus, or described it in the Peziza genus. And you remember me talking about the Pezizas back when we were talking about the Otidia, Leporinas, and the Onoticas? Yeah. Well, these guys were originally put into that genus with them, and then taken out later on. But the same year, actually, Johann Hedwig also called them Octospora, which is a weird one. And then along came our old buddy there, Samuel Frederick Gray. Remember Sammy Fred? He wrote that book, The Natural Arrangement of British Plants. Well, yeah, why was it in a plant book? Well, because back then they called them cryptogamic plants. So very, very weird. Ouch, I'm getting bitten by something here. Oh, no, never mind. It's just a blackberry thorn. So, but later on, Elias Magnus Fries came along. He's our king of the fungal taxonomy. And he called it Helotium citrinum. And that synonym was used for about 100 years until like 1974, believe it or not, way long. And Richard Korff, he actually went by Dick, so Dickie Korff there, he noticed that there was a genus in the Basidiomyces class that was also named the same, and that's a no-no. So he moved it over to the already formed Bisporella. And there's another Bisporella that looks similar to this one, Bispirella sulphurina, but that one's kind of got a translucent-y kind of margin to it, and it's even smaller. And of course there's the Orbilia and the Melissia genus, and those guys are the smallest of them all, really. And they're not near as yellowy. These guys are actually almost more on the orangey side. And there's actually, I think there's even a Dacromyces out there too that's a little bit more blobby and kind of get wrinkly like the regular Dacromyces chrysospermus can. So these guys are ascomycotas like the morels and the chlorosoboria and the helvellas and etc, etc, etc. And no lab reports on these guys as of yet, so I had to go with physical attributes and a little bit of taxonomy for you. And I'm going to grab a chlorosoboria and give us a little comparison. Here we go. We got a couple of beautiful contrasts between two beautiful ascomycotas. We have the chlorosoboria on this chunk of wood here, and we have the Bispirella citrina on this one. You can see that they both really don't have much of a stipe, and I just absolutely love the contrast between the two of them. Very beautiful. Now these guys, the chlorosoboria, really like the shade and they like the moisture, but they really like being covered. This guy I had to turn over to find the actual cups, so yeah, right on. Well, the weather has been absolutely crazy. It was sunny, now it's raining. It's just nuts, man. We've had crazy rain too, so brings out more mushrooms. All right, let's get back down the trail, shall we? Ooh, take a booski at these little weirdos. Wow. These look very much like the Helvella vespertina, the Elfin saddle. But they're not, because there's a lot of differences right here. But, luckily, I actually have a vespertina in hand. So let's take a boo at this. We have, this is the Helvella vespertina, the slate Elfin saddle, and one thing about these guys is their cap is attached at little tiny points all the way around the stipe here, and it's attached to the stipe. You can see that kind of saddle shape to it. And then we've got this one right here, which, oh, he came up pretty good. Awesome. Okay, so yes, you can see that Elfin saddle, but look at the stipe differences. Look at the color differences. Totally amazing. But yeah, they are in the same genus, but a completely different species. This one also is, the cap is not attached to the stipe anywhere at the bottom of the margin and only up here at the top. So that's another little telltale thing of these guys. So the question is, though, however, is it Helvella compressa? Is it Helvella elastica? Is it Helvella lataspora? Is it Helvella lactea? Or, I'm going to throw a monkey wrench in here, is it Verpa conica? Wow. Yeah, well, the Verpa conica is actually related, is the one of the false morels, and it has more of a kind of a conical shape, similar color, and it is only attached at the top, but the cap is kind of conical, like the name, conica. So we're going to just take that one out. And second of all, those guys grow in the spring. It is the middle of December. Yeah, all right, well, let's go through a couple of other little things on these guys. I'll set up the camera here because it's just a little bit easier for me, so hang on one second. Okay, well, let's start with Helvella elastica. So Helvella elastica has some very, very unique features that are, they're very kind of rounded and soft corners, and this cleft in the middle here is not so much of a cleft, and it's more like just kind of like a regular kind of saddle-y kind of thing. And also the margins of the elastica curl in, and this one here is curling out, as you can see. So I think we can take elastica off the list here. So, pew! Sorry buddy, didn't mean to whack you. Is it Helvella lactea? Well, they have a corded kind of stem, quite like the Vespertina. However, it is more on the wider side, and their caps are fused to the stipe in certain little spots, kind of like they're spot welded along the stipe area. It's pretty wild. Is it Helvella compressa? Well, here's one thing about the compressa is they do flare up the way that this one is here on the wings, shall we say. The margin does roll out on those, and also since these guys kind of flare up like that, they cause kind of a cleft in the middle here, whereas the Elastica, like I said, is kind of more of a smoother transition through there. Now the Helvella lataspora is almost identical to the compressa. Its margins roll out and it's got a similar kind of stipe, but it's a little bit smaller. So, and even the colors are the same. Now there is another one which looks similar in the Gyromitra, and that one is Gyromitra infulum. But it has more of an orangey cap, it's stockier, it's got bigger stipe, and so that one's out of the question for sure. So I'm going to go with the Helvella compressa, which has all the features that I've mentioned about this one. And again, like I said, the lataspora is very similar, but it's quite a bit smaller. And then we've got some other little guys over here, and they're similar, but they're not quite the same. Let's try and get one of these. Oh yeah, okay. Oh, here we go. Here's another one. So you can see on this one, it's a little softer going through here. It's not quite as flared up. It doesn't have as much of a cleft. But you do see that the margins roll out. Isn't that interesting? So that takes Elastica off the charts for this one. Whereas this one, I think, is the compressa, as I mentioned. See, so they are similar, but not the same. Also, the stipe on this one is quite round, and this one, as you can see, is kind of kinked. Doesn't have the big pits of the Vespertina, but, you know, they are quite a bit different. Now, originally, they did think that these guys were saprotrobes, and they have found out now that they believe that they have a mycorrhizal connection with both the conifers and deciduous, so that's pretty wild in itself. Now let's take a look at the stipe connection here, and I'm just going to pull this one side up here, and you can see it is only connected at the very top of the cap. And you can see that the underside of the cap here is quite smooth. The compressa is kind of fuzzy, but still Elfin saddle-like. And there's actually another couple that are very close here. I'm just going to pull this one up here too. Yeah, there we go. Just amazing, amazing, amazing little creatures. So we've got the four all side by side here. So we know that we have the Helvella vespertina. We believe we have the Helvella compressa. And this one here, I believe that this one is Helvella albella. Now, they are classified as edible in most of the guides. Now, there are some that say that they have carcinogens in them, and they also have the gyromitrin in them. You just have to be very, very careful, is the big thing, I guess. Now, the Helvella genus in North America has not had a lot of DNA testing done thus far. Basically a little bit on the Lacinosa, which they realized was slightly different from the European, so you know, it got renamed to Vespertina and things like that. They have done testing on the Lacinosa and Crispa from Kashmir, India, both DNA and medicinal attributes and whatnot, but it will be coming. And there apparently is going to be some changes in that genus when it does happen. So keep an eye out for that. And that is my 2 cents. Now it looks like we finally got a little bit of a reprieve in the rain, which is nice. We're already soaked though. Wow. You know, the way the world is at this point, and I'm talking about with the food and everything, with the additives and steroids and growth hormones and all of the above, you know. And not to mention the prices at the grocery store. They're absolutely ludicrous, by the way. And I know that every country is feeling this pinch, you know, so it's not just allocated to North America. It's crazy. But we're going to be finding more and more people are going to get into wild foraging. They're going to start building little raised garden beds in their background or in their backyard and everything like that. I mean, personally, I have not bought a store-bought mushroom in about 3 years. As a matter of fact, the last 3 months, every meal that I have had at night, I have had wild mushrooms with it. And, you know, because it's amazing. I've had them with my every dinner. You know, I know their health benefits. I know where they were in the environment and where they came from. So I know that they're not bad areas like industrial areas or anything like that and whatnot. You know, the forest where I get them and walk brings me peace and zen. You know, so, and I think everybody needs a little bit more of that these days. You know, it also increases the volume of your meals, you know, and adds amazing flavors. And it costs you nothing. So, other than your time, of course. I went to the grocery store to pick up those Bisporus mushrooms. And I happened to be walking past a turkey, and I just wanted to see how much they were. 14.5-pound turkey was $96. That's ridiculous. I mean, you know, 5 years ago, I paid 96 cents a pound. 14.5-pound turkey was under 20 bucks. That is absolutely ridiculous, and they're going to have to do something about that. But, you know, so we have to subsidize our groceries in other ways that are a little bit cheaper. So gardening is a big one. Vegetable gardens are just, you know, they're so great. But one thing about the wild foraging end of things is the fact that the nutrients out here are amazing. A lot of the agricultural land and whatnot, their soils are getting depleted. And these forests are so rich. Their soil is so rich from, you know, between the leaves falling and rotting and then turning into humus and whatnot, and branches coming down and fungi breaking them down, mosses breaking them down, microbes breaking them down, trees bringing in, fixing nitrogen out of the air, like alders, you know, the red alders, the Alnus rubra, you know, they'll fix them into some kind of ammonium compound and they'll send it down into their roots and into the forest floor, and then, you know, the Oregon grape, the Berberis aquifolium, they're going to take advantage of that, and everything else is going to as well. You know, you got everything. The plants, the grasses, the moss, everybody benefits. Wow, I'm rambling. And we're soaked. Okay, everybody, that's it for us today. We are soaked, and we're going to go home and dry off. Thank you so very much for watching. And if you enjoyed this video, we're going to have a lot more of this kind of stuff coming out in our upcoming vids. And the best way to know when they're going to come out is to like and subscribe. Take care, everybody. And until next time.